Man, good afternoon. If this isn't a case of out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speak. Man, I just got my oil changed and they got a new management in there. And I've been going to this place. I know I always get my oil changed here. I've at least been there over 5 times to get my oil changed, right? And matter of fact, probably about 10 times. Cause I got my other car, I get my oil changed there too. I get my other vehicle, I get my oil changed there too. And I just put a video down, and right before I came to the place to get my oil change, I had downloaded a video, and now this is after the fact I got my oil changed. Do you know this new management tried to get me? They tried to get me, man. Look, I'm a mechanic myself. I do work. Well, I'm not a mechanic, like a licensed mechanic or anything, but I do work on my cars and all of that stuff. I go get the parts and I know how to do it or whatever, right? So first when I came in there, the new guy, I never met him. This is the first time I met him. There's a new guy in there, and I was talking to him, and he seemed like he was cool, He just seemed like he had a good demeanor, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, cool, because most people just, they uptight, they curt with you, they short, they don't want to answer your question, they act like they got a problem and everything. So I'm talking to him and everything, and the dude, cool, he real cool. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was asking him about the old guy, the manager that was there. He talking about his brother died, and he's in there, he's in there for him, and he's stepping in and taking his days because he's gonna be off for a couple weeks or whatever. So he gonna be in there, right? So I'm like, okay, bad. And I said, I just need an oil change. Then I asked him, as the oil change, I was like, because I was gonna change my back brakes, right? I said, well, look, I got all the parts. I got my rotors and my back brakes and all that, and I know I need a machine to disengage my parking brake, right? Because it's an automatic parking brake, because I got a nice car or whatever, and I know that the thing has to be disengaged and you have to put it up on the machine, but I know how to do it a different way, right? But I asked him, I was like, yeah, could you change the brakes, my back brakes for me or whatever? I'll pay y'all whatever. I got all the parts. I got the rotors, I got the brakes, I got everything that you need. All I would just need y'all to pay y'all is for the labor. So he was like, nah, we can't do that. We got to use our own parts and all of this and that. Gave me a whole spiel about it. So I was like, okay, no problem, cool, that's fine. I'll do it myself. And so, I gave him my key to get my car and just to get it the oil change, right? I get synthetic oil and all that other stuff, right? So boom, I'm waiting, and it took probably about almost 2 hours I've been waiting. And so he came around. I went around the place because I didn't leave the place. I just walked around the garage area to where they had a place where you could basically stand and everything, or you can sit down. So I just went over there, and it's a nice day. The sun is shining. So I went over there and just enjoyed myself, right? So, boom, he came around there where I was at, and he was talking to me about, my car and everything, and he was like saying, yeah, man, we went, you might need some back tires and all this other stuff, and you want to come around and take a look. I said, nah, I can get some tires, I'm good. He was like, yeah, and also, I saw that you got, really nice stuff as far as your materials to use to change your brakes. So in my mind, first of all, I'm thinking, like, what is he doing in going through my car, looking at the stuff that I had to even know this? Because he's supposed to be under the hood doing a oil change. So he was like, yeah, so I looked at it, and I was saying to myself, because I'm the manager, I can go ahead and do it for you and everything. I said, nah, I'm good. I said, you already told me that, you got company policies and all this. I said, I can do it myself. I said, I'm a mechanic. I'm not licensed or anything, but I know how to work on cars. I've been doing it since I was a young boy. So I know how to work on cars real good. I know how to do it. I just never went to school for it, right? So he was like, oh, nah, we can do it for you, man. It's no problem, because I see you got top of the line stuff that you put on your car and everything. Most people come in here and they give shabby, and they give half the parts be all, you know, secondary parts and stuff like that, but you got really good parts and we can do it for you. I said, nah, I'm good. You already told me you couldn't do it because your policy, and I don't want to get you in trouble or none of that, right? So I'm sticking to my guns, right? So he was like, nah, because we could do it for $195. I said, nah, I'm good. I told you I'm good. You ain't got to worry about, I know how to do it. He said, but you know your parking brake needs to be put on a machine. It has to be electronically disengaged and everything, right? I said, yeah, I know that. I said, I know how to go around about that. I said, I know how to do all of that. I was just trying to put some money in your pockets when I first came up, but since you ain't want it, fine. He was like, no, we could. I said, no, I'm good. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. And he was like, oh, okay, all right. No problem, or whatever, right? So, like I said, I continued to wait. He said, your car will be ready in a little while or whatever. You can come pick it up and stuff. So I was like, okay. So, you know, I stayed around there for another like 25 minutes or whatever. And then I went back around the front area because I had thought about it. I said, I'm gonna go ahead and say something to him about going through my car because he shouldn't have went through my car, So I pulled him to the side and went around on the side of the building, and I said, man, I had spoke to you about doing my brakes when I first came in there, and you told me that you couldn't do them and everything like that, and you had a company policy and you couldn't use nobody else's brakes and all of that. I said, why did you go through my car looking at my stuff that I had? I said, I hired you to do my oil change. That's under the hood. That's not going through my car and all that. He was like, oh, nah. We just go through and make sure everything is okay. I said, nah, but that's a full service oil change when you get that done. He was like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I apologize and everything. So when he apologized, I left it at that. I said, oh, okay, long as you understand what I'm saying, thank you so much. Long as you understand what I'm saying is you don't supposed to be going through people's stuff, period. He was like, no, I apologize and it won't happen again, and I'm sorry. You gonna let me in? You act like you was let me in, now you pulling up. Thank you. She ain't even waiting. Hey. But anyway, so he apologized, kept apologizing and everything. So I was like, all right, cool, boom. And then, we left it at that. And he told me, he said, your car will be ready in about 10 more minutes or whatever. And I said, okay, boom. So I stayed there. After the 10 minutes came, he came over to me and got me. He was like, yeah, your car is ready. You want to come on and I'll check you out and everything. I said, yeah, cool. So I went around there with him, and he was like, let me go ahead and get your invoice and everything together, and we'll, you can just go ahead and check it out right here. You don't got to go up to the front. I usually go to the cashier and pay it, but they got a new system, I guess, because like I said, it's a new management. They got the little, like the Stripe or whatever, where you can use your credit card right there at the inside the garage. So I was like, all right, bet. How much is? I said, can I pay for cash? Because I always pay cash. I said, can I pay cash? He was like, yeah, no problem. So he pulled up the invoice, and he said $91. And I said, $91? And I didn't been there 10 times, over 10 times. With all my cars, I go there because I got a good rapport with the regular manager whose brother had passed away. So I said, $91? I said, nah, bro, it ain't no more than $62, man. It ain't no more than, and come to find out, because I went, after I was telling him, he was like, yeah. I said, wait a minute, what did y'all do? Because $91, if I knew it was going to be $91, I'd have changed my oil myself. And he said, no, we did this, and he went down the screen on the computer screen, and he said this, environmental taxes and all. I said, oh, no, bro, So I said, he was like, oh, no, I said, I usually pay like $62. He was like, okay, well, if you want to give me $62, you can give me $62. So I said, man, like, why did you tell me it was $91 if I can give you $62? Oh, he's like, nah, this is what, you got synthetic oil and everything. I said, yeah, I always get synthetic oil. That's what my car requires. And he said, no, but it's not $55 or because I talked to the manager and he said he'd been charging $55 for a synthetic oil change, and I told him that wasn't right. I said, who are you to be telling the manager that's gone because his brother died that he charging $55 that it's not right? So he was like, no, I'm just saying it because I've been doing this for 20, and then he started getting mad, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know ain't no oil change. You can't get us. So I said, calm down, bro. He's like, no, I'm not mad on it. I'm just saying I've been doing this for a long time, and he's telling people that it's $55, and it's not. I said, well, I've been coming here for a long time. I said, matter of fact, wait right here. I went out to my car, went into the, got in the glove compartment, and pulled out an old invoice that I had, and it was $55 and like 62 cents or something. It was cheaper than the $62 that I told him, and I brought it back to him, and he saw it and looked at it and everything, and that's when he got real. That's when the real trueness out of him. He started cussing. He said, dude, they've been effing your car up, man. They're not putting real synthetic oil and all. So I said, bro, you ain't got to cuss at me. I said, ever since me and you met, all I've been doing is giving you good vibes because that's what's coming out of my heart. You're up here using profanity and all. I said, you don't need to do that with me. I said, look, I've been walking with the Lord for a long time. I don't want to go back to my old self. So you can come down a couple of meters and we can meet at this gate together so we can walk through together, because you're not walking the same path that I'm walking. You understand? And if you want me to walk your path, it's going to be something that's different from what you've been getting from me since I met you. And he was like, oh, no. And he was like, all right, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You can just give me whatever you want to give me, man. And because I got kind of mad then. I was like, I've been shown, this is what you do. When you show somebody love and you keep being kind to folk, they take your kindness for weakness. I'm telling you, people will take your kindness for weakness. What's a good spot? Yeah, they'll take your kindness for weakness. And that's what they do. And after I showed him that, I gave him $62. I gave him an extra $4 or $5 or whatever it was, because it wasn't even that much. You know what I'm saying? And I gave him, I said, man, they'll never see me again. They lost the client. They lost a loyal, and I'm loyal to all of my, everywhere I go, I'm loyal. Like, I'm loyal. That was before I was even saved or whatever, but I stay loyal to my constituents. You know what I'm saying? People who do me right and treat me right and be honest with me, I stay loyal to them. But them, he lost the client. I will never go back there again. You understand? So he showed me the true him. Because like I said, I thought that he was a good guy. I thought that he was cool. I thought that he was somebody that, I was like, oh man, this guy is a good guy, from the way he was talking to me when we first met. But come to find out, no, he is not at all. And I just want to tell people that if you talk to a person long enough, you will find out the real them after a while, because whatever's in your heart will come to the surface. Whatever's in your heart will come to the surface. And most of the time, if people cannot control their anger, cannot control who they, that are disciplined enough to understand that their character is more important than the circumstances that they're dealing with, you don't need to deal with them, man. You don't need to deal with them. But I just wanted to make this quick post and let y'all know, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and God judges your heart. Man looks on the outward appearance, which I did. I looked at him and how he was treating me in the outward appearance. But God judges your heart. That's what he told Samuel. So I wanted to make this quick post and let y'all know, man, people ain't who you think they are. People are not who you think they are. They are ravenous wolves in sheep clothing. Amen? Amen. Take care.